So welcome everyone. Hello, good to see you all in the start of this exciting course. Deutsch is in the back. Hooray! We already had this desire for a long time to pick up really studying Hebrew, not only just doing letters, but also to understand a little bit about how to write Hebrew, how to recognize the letters, and how to understand how the grammar functions. So when you read an interlinear Bible, then you can see from the reading from the word, you get more information that is not always translated. So we do this to get a better understanding of the Hebrew language, so that we are able to learn more what Scripture is telling us, and from that on we want to know more who God is, and that is the ultimate goal. We learn Hebrew to have a better understanding of who God is, because we believe that the Hebrew language was given to God, by God, for creation. Admitting, come on, there we are. Yeah. So good to join you all. I want to explain some basic rules about using Zoom, especially when about more than 15 or 20 people are at the same time online. It is best to mute your microphone unless you want to ask something. If we are in the middle of something, or you want to make a remark, you are able to raise your hand. Does anybody know how to raise your hand? Where is it? I just saw it. Where is my... Leonard is raising his hand. Yes. Yeah. So you go to your... at the bottom, you see how many participants there are. You see a share screen button below. You see a chat button, and some of you might have a recording button and a reactions button. When you click on participants, you get a list, and most of the times you see yourself at the top of the list. And when you see that, you are able to put your hand up, raise a hand. So on the screen, on my screen, my hand will raise, so I know you want to ask a question. Yes, Koos and Georgine. Yeah. Maybe we can try it also. You know how it functions. Yes, there are also reaction buttons, applause. And, that's the new version. If you install the new version, you can go, okay, I got it. Yes, I agree. Happy clappy. So the best way to Zoom is an excellent product. Of course, with any product, you need to know a little bit how it functions to get the best out of it. Ik heb u gezien. Yes, I've seen your hand, brother. You can also ask questions in the chat box. So if you click on chat, on the right side of your screen is a column, and what you see there is that at the lower hand you can type a question or a remark to, and there you can select to everybody or just to one person individually. So if you want to chat to another person and you don't want the rest to see that, then you can do that privately. But remember, the chat is saved afterwards. So everything you type is not private for the host. So beware. Okay. Lower hand. Oh, lower hand. Yeah. So this is basically Zoom, and it's a great tool. If anybody has trouble understanding the sound or that the video is too, we're going to share videos, of course, from the teachings. If you cannot hear it good, please let us know, because I can do something with the sound. Marcel, at the bottom, you see an icon called reactions. When you go to the reactions, it's different when you're working from a tablet or your phone. If you're working from your tablet or your phone, you need to go up right to get some extra stuff, extra opportunity to do that. So when you have a computer, it's at the bottom. When you have an iPad, maybe I can show that because that's better. This is from the iPad. This is the same meeting, of course. And you see it's different than from the laptop or from the desktop. At the bottom right, you have this more. And what you can see, I hope you can read it. Can you read it or not? When you push the button more, you can see the hands and the thumb. You can chat or you can raise hands. So, and if you go to participants, you can see how many participants there are. And you can also raise chat, and then on your, I don't know how it's like that. You can see it like that, you see? Okay, that's when you work with an, oh, okay, close. That's when you work using your mobile device. Ah. Hello, Esther. You made it, hooray. So we're going to study from this great book you might already know, the biblical, Introducing Biblical Hebrew. And we do the first lesson today, and it's about Aleph. As you might know now, that the Hebrew language is we call it in Dutch a kwadraatschrift. It's a writing within a square. So every letter that you have is within a square. There are a few exceptions, of course, like any language. I'm going to show you on my whiteboard. Oh, go black, go thinner. When you have a square like this, almost every Hebrew letter is within this square. And so the letters need to be within this square. When you take the Aleph, for instance, it's like this. That is how you write the Aleph. And when you take another square, just to do the basic principles, you do the bait. That's a bait. So all letters are within a square. There are a few exceptions, like the Lamed. It extends a little bit. Let's do a different color here. A little bit thicker. The lamed goes down, then to the right. Oh, sorry. My pen goes down to the right, like this. So this is a letter that goes above this line. You see, this line and this lamed is going above. And there is another letter, that's the kov, that goes below. So when we have another square, oh, I'm not sure how you call this in English, but we call it kwadraatschrift. The kov is going below. Come on. And goes like this. That's a kov. So you see the letters over here are within the square. Most of them are, and there are letters that go outside of the box. These are letters that we call outside of the boxes. I hope you understand. We're going to practice a lot, and there are some exercises in the book, but I also found some things that helped me a lot to understand the language. So we do the exercises together and then explain what to do. Are you all ready for the first lesson to run it? And if you want to ask something, so I will be monitoring the raising of the hand, then I will stop or pause the video and then unmute yourself and ask your question, and then we continue. Okay, the first lesson is a long one because he talks about all the different letters in one row. So if you have a question, then raise your hand. Another point, every person has a unique handwriting. That's why we have handwriting experts. So the letters that I used to write in Hebrew are different than Charles writes them, but are the same principle. That's why I handed out the writing chart, a practical chart, where you can learn in your ruitjespapier or graph paper how to write them. And it takes some time to exercise it, to practice it, to get a hand of it. And in the beginning, it's like, see yourself sitting in the school again and learning how to write and see how, what we call hanepoten, how your handwriting is not normal as it is now. Are there now any questions you want to ask or put them in the chat box? Then we can discuss it. Is it clear what I mean with the square, and most every letter is within the square and there are a few exceptions? And that the handwriting of Charles he uses in the video is slightly different than what you see in the book, but every person's handwriting is unique. The principles are the same. Okay, then I'm going to share my screen, use computer audio. I hope everybody can see this.
The Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet, as you are probably aware, is written from right to left.
Just to check, can everybody hear the sound? Just nod your head, they can see it. Okay, top, then we continue.
Like English. It initially had no vowels, only consonants, and even today there is no distinction between upper and lower case. So there's no such thing as an uppercase Hebrew letter. They're all the same case. Let's take a look at each letter one at a time. The first letter is Aleph. And Aleph is written something like this. Aleph is a silent letter. If you want to pronounce it, though, you could pronounce it as the H in honest. The initial H in honest produces a kind of a stoppage of breath. Honest. And sometimes Aleph it's useful to pronounce it that way. Other times, you just leave it as a silent letter. So Aleph, the silent letter. The second letter is Beit. And Beit is written like this. Now, Beit is one of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet that can take a dot. It's a bit bigger. So let's write it with and without the dot. This dot is known as a dagesh. And it changes the pronunciation. Beit with the dagesh is a b sound, as in boy. And without it is a v, as in van. So Beit, pronounced b or v, depending on whether it has this dagesh or not. The next letter is Gimel. Gimel is written like this. Something like that anyway. And like the Beit, it too can take a dagesh. That's a better Gimel. Now, unlike the Beit, the dagesh here makes no pronunciation difference. They're both pronounced the same, and it's the hard g, as in go. So Gimel, pronounced g. After Gimel is Dalet. Dalet is written like this. And like Beit and Gimel, it too can take a dagesh. So we have two of them, with and without. Now, with the dagesh, it is pronounced d, as in dog. Without the dagesh, historically, it was probably pronounced like the this, like the th in the this, so the. And some readers and teachers of Biblical Hebrew will maintain this distinction. In modern Hebrew, this is not maintained. They're both pronounced, the distinction is not maintained, they're both pronounced d, as in dog. So that's Dalet. The next letter is Hey. Hey is written like this. Be sure to get that gap in the Hey there. Hey is the H sound, as in the English word house. So Hey is the H sound. The next letter is Vav. And Vav, written something like that. I often just write a slanted line, one stroke. Has a little bit of a wing here at the top. Vav is V sound, as in van. Now historically it was probably a W sound, as in way. So often it is called a wow by people who work in Biblical Hebrew. So wow or Vav, either one. After Vav, we have Zion. Now Zion is written very similarly to very much like the Vav, only the top stroke extends on both sides of the vertical. So that's how you distinguish it. Zion is our Z sound, or Z sound, as in zero. Zion. The next letter is Chet. Chet is written something like this. Unlike the Hey, there is no gap here. That's what distinguishes the two. Chet is the Ch sound, or something like the Ch sound, in Bach, or in Loch. It's that German or Scottish Ch sound. Chet. After Chet, we have Tate. Tate is written something like this. And this is a T sound, as in teach. T as in teach. So that's our Tate. The next letter is Yud. Yud is a small letter. I should perhaps have rounded that a bit. Let's try it again over here. Huh, not much better. Yud. Yud is a small rounded letter near the top, and it is the Y sound, as in yes. Yud. Y.
Okay, we've had the first 10 letters. Let's take a break here. See if I can switch to my whiteboard. What you have seen is there are all letters are within the square. I need to take that out. All letters are in the square, or in het vierkantje. Some letters have double sounds. Some letters look the same. So what we have in this first 10 letters is that you can get mixed up. There are later on special lessons to distinguish, for instance, the letters that look the same, like the hey and the get. There's only a small difference, and it has to do with the opening over here. So the hey and the get look almost the same. Oh. And there are letters that have the same sound, like you already heard, and that has to do with a little dot, the bait and the veit. So this is called a B and this is called a V. And it's all in the beginning. It's like everything is looking the same and the letters are almost have the same form, but you will find when you practice and you start writing them down that you are learning how to distinguish, and I want to encourage you, you will get it if you put time in it, and if you take the time to just write down the letters and do it several times using the square paper. You will get it. You will get the differences, because when you write it, it's like an extra addition to your learning. Some people are learning visual, some people are learning audible, but when you write stuff with your hand, you will find the differences, and then because you get a notice of it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So we have already in these 10 letters, we have the letters that are in the square. Some letters have double sounds, and some letters look the same. And there was even a letter that had no sound at all.
Okay, I have edited.
So the letter with no sound was, of course, the first letter, the Aleph. And this letter is like the word honest. It's almost, you don't pronounce it. It's more a breath that comes out of your mouth. I just wanted to stop here to show you what the differences are in all these letters in the first 10. So now we continue to the next letters. and we get the kaf.
After Yud comes Kaf. Kaf is written a bit like the English C, but backwards. And like Beit and Gimel, it can take a Dagesh. So let's put one in there. With the Dagesh, Kaf is a K, the hard K sound, as in king. Without the Dagesh, it is that Ch sound, as in Bach, or Loch, as we saw earlier with Tate. So this is Kaf. Kaf is K or Ch. After Kaf, we have Lamed. Now Lamed starts above the line, extends below and around, something like that. Lamed is our L sound, as in Lord. So Lamed is L, as in Lord. After Lamed, we have Mem. Mem has a vertical component and a rounded component. So Mem, and Mem is the M sound, as in man. Oops, my final N there didn't work out. Well, you know the word. Man. Man. Mem is man. Nun is our next letter, and it's shaped something like this. And Nun, or some people may say Nun, Nun is the N sound as in the English word now. After Nun we have Samech, which is written something like this. Samech is the S sound as in sing. Samech is S as in sing. After Samech we have Ayin. Ayin is written something like this. Ayin, like the Aleph, is a silent letter. Some will pronounce it as a deep guttural letter, Ayin. I don't maintain that distinction. It's too difficult for me. Ayin. After Ayin we have Pei. Now Pei looks like this. And Pei is another letter that can take a Dagesh. So we'll write it in here. With the Dagesh, Pei is P, or P sound, as in peace. So Pei is P. Without the Dagesh over here, it's the F sound, like the English F, as in fish. So Pei is P or F. After Pei comes Tzade. Tzade is written something like this. And Tzade is like the sound in the English word hits, the final sound here. Hits. Tzade, the TS sound. After Tzade comes Kof, which looks something like this. Has a portion that extends below the line. Maybe we did that a bit long, but it's got a descender. And it is pronounced K, as in king. Just like our Kaf. The Kaf with the Dagesh is also pronounced K, as in king. This is Kof. Now it is transliterated with a Q, a small Q, but it's never pronounced Kwe, as in quick. So don't pronounce it that way. Pronounce it K, as in king. So that's Kof. After Kof is Resh, and Resh is shaped like this. Remember to round this corner. That'll distinguish it from the dalet. Resh is the R sound, as in rope. Resh. Now after Resh we have Shin, which looks like this, and it has a dot on this side here. Shin. And Shin, like the Samech, is the S sound, as in sing. So that's Shin, the S sound. After Shin we have Shin. Now Shin looks like the Shin but has a dot on the other side. For Shin the dot is over here on the right. And this is our sh sound, as in show. Now, one thing to note with Shin and Shin is that they can be considered, sometimes are considered one letter. If you go to Psalm 119, you'll see that it has 22 parts. It's an acrostic poem. Each part, each section of the poem starts with one of the Hebrew letters, and the reason it's 22 is because Shin and Shin are treated as one. But in terms of pronunciation, Shin is S, Shin is Sh, Sh as in show. The last letter is Tav. Tav is shaped something like this, written something like this. It's got a little tail here, or a foot, and it's closed here. This is the T sound, as in teach. And like 5 other letters in the Hebrew alphabet that we've encountered, it too can take a dagesh. So let's put one in there. In modern Hebrew, these are both pronounced teach. Historically, the tav without the dagesh was probably th, as in thin. So this is different from the as in this, which is what we said the dalet is without the dagesh, at least historically. So historically, the tav is the as in thin. Th as in thin, sorry. But in modern Hebrew, there's no distinction in sound. They're both pronounced t.
Hooray! We've done the first section of 22 letters. Good for you.
Ronald?
Ja.
Ik zag dat je halverwege de opname de ondertiteling aan had gezet.
Ja.
Maar dan wordt mijn scherm wordt het soms heel onduidelijk om te lezen wat er nou precies staat.
Oké, dan laat ik dat weg. Ik denk misschien helpt het sommigen die moeite hebben met het verstaan van het Engels.
Het wordt ook niet goed vertaald, niet helemaal.
Niet helemaal goed vertaald.
Dat leidt ook een beetje af eigenlijk.
Ja, ik snap het. Maar je kunt deze les, we zullen de link altijd in de groep zetten. Je kunt de les altijd zelf nog bekijken. Dan kun je wel of niet de ondertiteling aanzetten. En dan kun je inderdaad soms heel hard lachen over wat er gedacht wordt dat er gezegd wordt. Dat is wel heel bizar. We hebben nu eigenlijk op bladzij 20 en 21 hebben we dit gedaan. Dus ik weet niet of je al de gelegenheid was om het af te drukken of te printen. Hier is mijn pen. Ik ga nu op een rijtje zetten en dat is echt iets wat je zelf moet doen, want dat is gewoon huiswerk. Ik zal mijn whiteboard weer sharen. Een nieuwe pagina erbij. New page. Sorry, my English friends. So when you have the letters, the letters. It's best to make a column on your paper like this, and you do first the Hebrew, and then you have an interesting column, and that is called the transcription. Oh, 2S, I think, transcript. And the R is missing, it's all there. Transcript. For instance, the letter bait, over here, the bait, with the dagesh is written as a normal B. And the letter bait, let's go for the list. Where is it? Where's my list? Yeah, and the B without a dot is transcribed like this. You see the difference? So you have the letter B with this little dot, that's called a dagesh. So the dot is called a dagesh. So the dot in it is with the hard B, or the B sound. So the sound, you could do that also. Oh, sorry. That's the B sound, and it's called in ben. And the V sound in van. So that's the pronunciation, how you pronounce the letter. So you have the Hebrew letter, the B is transcribed like this. You have the V, and it's transcribed with a small line under it. And now I have this letter, it's called the Aleph. The Aleph doesn't have a sound. So pay attention, it's a comma like this. It's a comma that way. And it has no sound, or like the H in honest, like he said. The honest, you don't speak it out, but it's there. So what I want you to do is to write out all the letters. We do this one, the gimel with a dagesh in it, and you transcribe it as a G, and it was from the word go. And you also had a gimel that was softer without a G, and that has the line under it, but it's pronounced almost the same. It's a softer go. Don't know how to, it's very sophisticated Hebrew, but the point is, there is a distinguish between these letters in a hard G and a soft G. We can do the dalet with a dot. That's the D in door. And you had the dalet without a D, and it gets a line under it. Ah, somebody is joining. Let's have a look. Okay, so we have, this is the first exercise. I think it's a good one. You take your piece of paper and use the square paper. That's the best, because then you learn how to write these letters all within the square. Transliterated, that's the better word. So all these letters, when you write them in the Latin script, are written like this. The Aleph is shown like a comma, the Beit as a B is without anything, and with a V sound it has a line under it, the hard G and the soft G, the hard D and the soft D. And it continues, of course, with all the letters. Now we can see the hey sound is just a hey. And then I write the vav like this, and it's a V or a W. The zayin, I write it like this. The Z sound, the Z. And then we have an interesting letter, that's the chet. Like I said, it's almost the same as the hey, but this difference is that it has this whole left side is closed. And you transcribe the hey, pay attention, with a dot under it. And zayin is, we come that to later though, the hey. Then we got a tet. Well, I write the tet different than he did. I write it like this. That's how I learned it. And it's, do I say this correctly? Ta-da. Yeah, it's the tet sound. And it's a T with a dot beneath it. The dog is asking for attention.
Ronald,
Ja,
bij jou zit een streepje rechts en bij die meneer zit een streepje links.
dat zei ik net. Hij schrijft hem anders. Hij schrijft de tet, schrijft hij zo. Dat is, handschriften zijn soms verschillend, maar als ik het boek volg en de practical chart die ik gedeeld had, dan zie je dat de tet meer dit symbool is dan de manier waarop hij het schreef. Vandaar dat ik uitlegde, ieder handschrift is uniek en soms heb je verschillende. Dus ik houd deze vorm aan en hij hield blijkbaar deze vorm aan. Maar als ik dat, even kijken, heb ik dat document nog? Oh, even wachten. Oh, I need to speak English. Sorry. Sorry, my friends, I need to speak English. Turn it around. How do I? That one. When you see here, you see the tet over here. You see the tet? In your the practice page. Oh. you see the Tate written like this. So that's the way I write it. I've trained myself in writing this way, and it helps me to understand how the letters are written. And there are other ways of writing letters, but this is the way I do it. And it also follows more the printed script of the book. So like I said, you can choose whatever you want, but I use this one. This chart helped me enormously to write the letters. And eraser. Okay. So this is He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud. And the Kaf is below here. With a hard Kaf, with the hard K sound. Oh, the Yud is a Y, is written as a Y. And the Kaf is written like a K. So the...
Je valt een beetje beneden het scherm, Ronald.
Oh. Zien jullie het niet? Are you not this better or not? Can you see that? Is this better?
It's just the lowest part where you are now. That is a bit off screen. Yeah.
Okay. Then I continue over here. Sorry about that.
If you put it on full screen, you can see it.
So the kaf with the dagesh is transliterated with the K, and without it's you get a K with a line under it. And this was the word in Bach. And this is the word in king, a hard K sound. New message. I'm full screen, some function of my blocks to lower bit. You can move your lower bar. You can move it. When you pick it up with the mouse, you can move this bar to another location. You can move it to the side or take it upstairs above. So you can move the bar with all the functional icons.
Left mouse button doesn't work.
Okay.
Neither does the right. So
I try to stay off the lower part then. So we have now the kaf, and after the kaf we've got a lamed, and it's the L. Oh, not just a normal L. Sorry. The mem, I write the mem different than he does. I do it like this. And it's called a mem. The noon is the same. Then you get the samech. And it's the normal S. Then you have the ayin. And pay attention, the comma is the other way around. It's like this. So the Aleph has the comma from left, goes the curve to the right and back. And here it starts at the right and goes down back to the right. That's the ayin. After the ayin, you get a pay. P, or you get the sound. You see, I write them differently without the P. The Tzade is the S with a dot beneath it. The Kuf is the Q, but it's pronounced as a K in King. But you transcribe it or transliterate it when you have to. There are exercises where you have the Hebrew words and you must transcribe them to Latin words. So you can, and you do it backwards always. So you have to learn the difference between the P without a line under it and the S with a dot and without a dot, because there are different letters. Then we got the Resh, that is simple. It's the R. The Sin with a dot on the left side. And this one has a dot above. Haha. And you have the Shin with the dot on the right side. And it has this upside down accent. And the last letter is the Taf on it. Let's go upstairs here. The Taf with the Dagesh is a T. And you have the Taf without a Dagesh. And it has a line. So now we have completed all the letters of the alphabet. I go back one page. You will all get these pictures. You can find the sound also in the book somewhere, and review the lesson. When you rerun this video, you can write in your column the English words that are used to pronounce them, because I don't remember them all. But to give a summary, we have letters with no sound, and this letter, let's do the spotlight and I can mess up. This letter here has a comma that goes from left then back again, so it's a curve, a left hand curve I call it. You have the ayin, it's a right hand curve. You got the bay from ben, and without a dagesh is the v sound. And all these letters have all these transcriptions. Now I'm going to share with you, if you have a moment.
Ronald, valt iets op. Mag ik het zeggen?
Natuurlijk, graag. In English, please.
I will try to speak out in English. The get and the hey are reversed compared to the other ones. The soft one doesn't have the dot beneath, and the hard one has the dot. And with all the others, it's the other way around. Is that correct?
Now, like here, let's try the spotlight again on this mess up. You see here, this is the kaf. It has a dot in it, and it's the hard K sound without anything under it. The ch sound has a K with a line under it. And the hey is just an H, but the chet has a dot under it. It's just, that's how they agreed to spell it.
All right. Oh, okay. I follow you.
I'm gonna share now. I'm gonna look at some text. I prepare this. Because some people have much benefit when you see it in the interlinear Bible. So I'm going to share now something from Bible Hub. It's just a verse that I took. I hope you can see it all. And then I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at the word Abraham. We speak out in the Netherlands and in English, Abraham. But when you look at the sound here, the B has no dot in it. And you can see it over here. Can you see my mouse? It's an Aleph, and that is the comma going to the left, and then the B with a line under it. Then you've got a Resh, and you got the Hey, and you got the final Mem. So when you speak this out, it's not Abraham, it's Avraham. So when you see all these letters, this is how the Hebrew is written. But what we learn in exercises is this, how to write it out in Latin letters, Latin script. And we are getting to all the vowels and etc., what all these things mean. But the point is that you see here, you see the letter Beit without a dagesh, and it's transliterated as a B with a line under it. Again here, you see a simple word, Vayikra. It's a Vav and a Yod, a Kof, a Resh, and an Aleph. Vayikra. Here you've got Elav. So they pronounce the V sound, the W sound at the end. This is, we come to the last. But you can see here in this transcription how to speak out the words, like the Shin in heaven is the S with the kind of triangle upside down on it. Just to understand why it's important to learn how to write the letters. So the H and this H are different. Here we have the first S from Samech, and on the next one you've got the S from Tzadeh, you got the S with a dot on it from Sin, and you got an S with this kind of Weber thing on it from Shin. So when you go all the S's, you've got the S from Samech, you've got the Tzadeh with a dot under it, and it's the TZ sound. You've got a Sin with the dot on the left, and it's Sin, and you've got the Shin with the dot on the right, which has this upside down mountain on it. So these are four letters transliterated as an S, but the symbols under it determine what kind of letter it is. And that's why you need to practice this. You need to first to learn how to write the letters, doing this exercise, and do how to transcribe them. And you find the way on page 20 and 21 with the pronunciation of the letters. Okay? And there are different letters that also have the T is also coming back. Like we have the T here with a dot under it, and we have here the T without a dot and the T with the line on. So you have 3 T's, and you have the other letters that sound the same. But it's the next lesson, we do it shortly. Are there any questions what I ask you to do? Is it clear that to make a list on your square paper, first the Hebrew, how to write the Hebrew letters, just learn how to write them. Then the transliteration of it, the transcribing, I don't know what the best word in English is, but how you write a letter in our alphabet, and then a list to get the sound right. And you get that from the video. Like the L sound in long, and the M sound in man, and the N sound in noon, and the S sound in sun. So you have all these ways to understand the pronunciation of the letters itself. It takes some time, but let's write it down because that's always better. 1, make a column, make 3 columns. Columns. The first column, write the Hebrew letter. And my suggestion is use the practical, the diagram that I sent you. And then second, who's coming in? Oh, okay. Second, write the transcription. In our script. And the last column is write the pronunciation. Like the B in van. The B with a line under it is spoken out like a V. So this is one of the exercises that help you to write down the letters. Are there any questions so far? Does it help? You can do thumbs up or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. 2 thumbs, yes. Okay, we go back to the next lesson, and I think that's gutturals and resh. Let's turn it to the side.
Gutturals and resh. 4 of the Hebrew letters, consonants, are gutturals. These are Aleph, and Ayin, and Hey, and Tate. They're called gutturals because they're pronounced near the back of the throat, or at the back of the throat. They'll tend to change vowels. They'll tend to change vowels to make them be pronounced further at the back of the mouth to match where these consonants are pronounced. There's another consonant, resh, that sometimes behaves like a guttural. It's not a guttural, but it'll sometimes behave like a guttural, and so often as you move through Hebrew, you'll hear these referred to together as a group, gutturals and resh.
Okay. Oh, where's my pencil? You find what he's telling you now on page 24, paragraph 136. Oh. And in the book are all kind of complicated terms. Why is that not?
Je geluid zit uit, Ronald.
Sorry, I didn't know why that happened, but I'm still online. So you have all these medical terms that are used to explain where the sound is coming from in the mouth, in the back of the throat, and how the sound is created. But for our understanding of Hebrew, that is what I call a nice to know part. It is good to know, though, that there are letters that are pronounced in the back of the throat, and the difficult term is larynx or pharynx, and I have no clue what it means. It's somewhere in the mouth. There is a picture in this. But anyway.
It's a strothoofd.
Yeah, strothoofd. The Aleph is one of them. The He, the Ayin, and the Chet. Like when you pronounce it, for us Dutchmen, it's easy to sound. And the He is coming out of the back of the throat like honest. It's coming more in the back of the throat. This is the Chet. And sometimes the Resh is also from the R, like the back of the throat. R. You have the R in the front of the mouth, R, and you have an R in the back of the mouth. R. Okay, these are the 4 letters, and you can read it. You can read the text yourself. The next lesson is paragraph on page 25, paragraph 1-4, and it's letters with dots.
Letters with dots. There are 6 letters in the Hebrew alphabet that can take a special dot. And these are sometimes called the Bagad Kafat letters, which is a mnemonic to help you remember which letters they are. So let's write them down here. B, G, D, K, F, and T, hence Bagad Kafat. Bagad Kafat. Now let's write them again down here with their dots. Historically, these letters could be pronounced in one of 2 ways. They could be pronounced as a continuous sound, which is what the top row here represents without the dot, or they could be pronounced as a stop, where there's a stoppage of breath, as in the bottom row here with these dots. The dot is known as a dagesh lene. Dagesh lene, or a weak dagesh. Lene just means weak. There's another dagesh in Hebrew that we'll deal with later. Now, not all of the distinctions have been maintained over time. This one in particular, this is pronounced the same. They're both g. Whether it has the dagesh lene or whether it doesn't, it's both g. And in modern Hebrew, these two are pronounced the same. Dalet is pronounced d, and tav is pronounced t, regardless of whether it has a dagesh or not. Some people will pronounce the dalet without the dagesh as the, as in the th in the, and this is d, so d and the. Likewise, some will pronounce these two differently. This will be t and this will be th, th as in thin. In modern Hebrew, these distinctions are lost, and so these three letters, the tav, the dalet, and the gimel, are all pronounced the same. The other three, however, are pronounced differently. The beit without the dagesh is pronounced v, as in v. So you could say veit, I suppose, while this is b, as in bait. So these are not pronounced the same. The kaf is also pronounced differently. This is ch, as in loch, or bach, and this is k. So ch and k. You can hear how ch is a sound that, maybe this is not the best example, but it's a fricative or aspirant, is a continuous sound, while k is a hard sound that stops. So these two are not pronounced the same. And f versus p. Here you can really see the difference between a continuous sound, f, theoretically you could hold that as long as you wanted, while p is a sound that is a stop. You can't hold that for a long time. So these two are pronounced differently. They're not pronounced the same. One note on transliteration. If a Begad Kafat letter has a dagesh in it, it just takes the normal transliterated letter, in this case B, for instance. If it doesn't have the dagesh, you put a little line under it. I'll write it up here. So B with a line under it for V. Likewise here, for instance, you'd have Tav, T rather, with a line under it, while this would be transliterated as just a straight T.
Okay, we're getting there. Begad Kafat. From the letters Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, and the Taf. With and without dagesh lene, or the weak dagesh. Let's take the B, the hard B. It's like in the word ben. And you can see that the B is short. It ends. You can't hold it on. But in the Hebrew word av, without a dagesh, the B is long, endless. As long as you have breath, you can say av. So the soft B has no end, and the hard B is short. And the same is true for the other letters. That makes a difference, like the word kaf. Go to the next page. Kaf with a dosh, with a dagesh, a dot. This is the word ken. That means doth. And you have chacham. So you have two ch sounds. Chacham. You have two ch sounds in one word, but they are written completely different. And you need to know if there is a dot in the kaf or not to pronounce it correctly. So chacham, you will see the word chokma here, which means wisdom. And this is a hard, and I don't know if it's, I think it's like this, but I'm not sure. Maybe not, but this is how I think you write chokma as the origin of the word wise. To wise comes from wisdom. So I leave it at this. So, but you understand it, that here you see two ways of writing a letter with a ch sound. Chacham. And then the pe. And that's interesting because the word pe means mouth. So the name of the letter is the same as the word mouth. And you have the word kaf. With a line under it because there is no dot in the pe, and that means hand. So to summarize, you have 6 letters that change the way you speak them out, the pronunciation. Some are very distinctive and others have been lost over time, but there are 6 letters that change their way you speak them by a dagesh lene that is in the letter. These letters are the beit, the gimel, the dalet, the kaf, the pe, and the taf. That's why you get begat gefat. To remember that. The gebat gefat letters have the possibility of a dagesh lene inside them, and there are 3 letters that have a very distinct difference in the way that you pronounce them. That's the B sound, that's the kaf sound, and the pe sound. Those 3 letters have a distinct change in pronunciation, and the others are not so different. The letters with a dot in it are hard and are short. The letter ends in its pronunciation. Ben. It immediately stops. The soft B, the V sound, is long. Av. So you have Avraham. You can hold on the letter V. So Avraham, father of nations. And what you see is that it's in the lesson, but the hard B goes before the vowel, and the soft B goes behind the vowel. That's why you get Av and Be.
Is that always the case?
Yep.
Okay.
And here you have Ken, the hard K sound, Ken, but Chacham, Chacham. So you can stretch it. The Pe and the Kaf. As long as you have breath, you can continue the sound of the sound from Kaf. And then we go, I think, to the last lesson of this chapter. It's taking almost more time than I thought. Final letter forms. This is paragraph 1.5.
Final letter forms. Hebrew has 5 consonants that have a different form at the end of a word. The first one is kaf. In the middle of a word or at the beginning, kaf looks like that. At the end of a word, it takes this form. Nun is the second consonant that has a final letter form, and it looks like this. So both the kaf and the nun have a final letter form with a descender that descends below the baseline. Also, they're very similar. It's just this top piece here, the top bar, that's different. So when you write them, be careful to make sure that your nun has a short bar and that your kaf, the top bar for the kaf, extends to distinguish them. The third letter, or a third letter, is Pe. Normally it looks like that. The final form looks something like this. It also has a long descender. And Sade. The medial form is like this, and the final form also has a long descender. So 4 of the 5 final forms have descenders that descend below the baseline. The last letter that has a final form is Mem. The medial form looks like that, and the final form looks a bit like a square. And this one does not have a descender that goes below the baseline. So to recap again, we have Kaf and Nun. We have final Pe, final Tzade, and final Mem. This and then there.
Okay. I think this is very easy now. You have 5 letters that have a different way of writing them at the end of the word. Oh, I've got red suddenly. The kaf and the kaf, the long kaf. Like in the word, I will spell it here. What's this? I have to check it out. This means lach. To you. You can also hear it in the word l'chaim. That means to life. A lach means to you. Lach lecha, life to you. So the second letter is the mem. Normal mem. I write it like this. He writes it different, but this is my way of writing it from the diagram. And the end goes like this. And you see this little piece is hanging over it. It's a little bit You can see it over here. A little bit longer. It's not like this, closed. That's not it. It has a little piece on the left side that hangs over it. And you find it in this word, Yud, Vav, Mem. And it's called Yom. And you already know what Yom means. It's day. Then you have the Chet. The Nun. Normal Nun is like this. And the long Nun is like this. The final Nun. And one word to where you can find it is Gen. Oh, sorry. And that means grace. Then you have the Pe. I write the Pe like really a block. And the final Pe is just like this. And one example is Kaf. And you see there is no dot. So you spell it like a K, an A, and a P with a line under it. That means you pronounce it as Kaf. And we had already that word, it is hand. And the last one I do over here, because not all of you might see it. The Tzade is like this and like that. And you have the word Eretz. Oh. And that means earth. So here you have 5 final letters. The Kaf, the Mem, the Nun, the Pe, and the Tzade. These 5 letters are different when they are at the end of a word. And I give you one example from here, Genesis 1. You see here the word Haaretz at the bottom. You see the final Tzade, and it's transcribed with the S with a dot under it. So you have He, Alef, Resh, and Tzade. We just wrote the word earth, but the He in front of it makes it the earth. So Aretz or Eretz creates the word earth, and the He is Haaretz. Okay. Nope. Then the last lesson.
Cough like this.
Similar.
It looks very similar. This is a 2-stroke letter. You got 1 stroke here and then a 2nd stroke. Cough is single stroke, just 1 rounded stroke. The other feature, main distinguishing feature, is that this is square. This has got a right angle here at the top, and this is round. Actually, right angle down here as well. So this is the way they should look, not something like this. Another pair are the Shin and Shin, and I'm going to write them this way for a reason. Here's the Shin, and here's the Shin. So the Shin has the dot on the left, the Shin has the dot on the right. How do you distinguish these things? How do you remember them? One way to remember which is which is if you write the alphabet out in Hebrew, which of course is right to left, and if you learn to say it or sing it, then you will say Sin, Shin, Sin and Shin and Tav. So when you write the alphabet this way and when you say it, Sin and Shin, the dots are together. So if you've memorized the alphabet Sin and Shin, and you can remember, okay, the dots are together, therefore this must be Sin, this must be Shin. I don't know if this is helpful for you, but anyway, don't confuse those two. The placement of the dot is what tells you the difference between those two letters. Another pair, and this is a classic pair, is the Dalet and the Resh. And when you're writing these things fast, it's easy to confuse them. And sometimes even in printing, a small font, it'll be hard to tell. The key difference is right here. The Dalet is a two-stroke letter with an angle, sharp angle, and the Resh is rounded. The Dalet can also be confused with the final Kaf if you don't write it well. Oops, I kind of squiggled there, but the final Kaf has a descender that descends below the baseline. That's the difference between these two. So if you're writing Hebrew and you don't extend this down far enough, someone may think you have a final Dalet. Another pair that is easy to confuse is the Tate and the Hey. Again, the difference here is that this is a single stroke letter and this is a two-stroke. You draw this line and then this line. And the main visual effect, after you've drawn it, is this gap. The Hey has the gap. The Tate, there's no gap here. So be careful to write those correctly. The Tate can also get mixed up with the Tav. And the difference here is that the Tav has a little tail right here. But if you're writing those fast, you forget the tail, the little tail down here, then they can look similar. And if you close your gap on your Hey and your Tav could also be confused. So all of these three really, here, you have to be careful to write those correctly. Another set is the Vav, which I guess is written like this. I often just write a line for Vav, sort of a slightly slanted line. The Vav and the Zayin. The difference here, well, similarities first. They both have a long stroke that is slightly slanted from the top to the bottom. They both have that. The Vav has a little bit of a top to it, the way it's printed and the way most people write it, although I don't. The difference between the two is that Zayin, the top, extends right across, not just on one side. And in terms of writing, this is a single stroke letter. Go here, then down. This is two. You draw the line, the main line, and then you put the little top on it. So single versus double stroke. But visually, what you're looking for is to make sure that your final form here, when you're finished drawing it, writing it, has a top that extends, and this one doesn't. So Zayin and Vav. And these two can also, if you're not careful, be confused with your final Nun. Remember, your Nun looks like this when it's initial or medial. A final Nun has a little top to it and extends down below the baseline. If you don't put a long enough tail on it, it's going to look like one of these two. So these three, you need to distinguish. So let's maybe recap briefly here. We have bait and kaf, sharp angles, 2 strokes. We have sin and shin. We have dalet and resh. Remember this corner when you write this, give it an angle, and resh, don't put an angle on there. So dalet and resh, and dalet and final kaf. Make sure you got the descender on the final kaf. Chet and hey, make sure your hey has a gap. And chet and tav, make sure your tav has the little tail on it. That'll keep it distinguished from both the chet and the hey. And finally, we have our vav, our zayin, and our final nun. Remember the tops to distinguish the vav from the zayin. And remember with your final nun to extend it below the baseline to distinguish it from the zayin and the vav. Letters that sound the same.
Oh. Okay. I think the tank is full, so we pause here and we can continue next week with the lesson. You can only handle as much information at one time, so I don't want to overload you. You can always revisit the website of Animated Hebrew and listen to them again. And on the other hand, do the exercise writing out the letters on a graph paper or righteous papier. It helps you enormously. To make 3 columns, try to find the way to write a letter using the diagram I sent you. Then write out how you transcribe it into our script, and then write out how you pronounce it. So I hope this helps, and I must be aware of the time, but because I don't want to take an hour, more than an hour, and I was too enthusiastic. So if we reach an hour, we just quit where we are and we continue the next week, because it takes too much time. You can only handle a few amount of information. So I apologize for taking so long. I didn't know it was so late, because when you're having fun, time flies. But at this pace of studying, it helps me, because, and I hope it helps you. It's easy, it's slow, but the only way to do it is to really engage it and how to write down the letters. That's the only way. You need to do it. I can't learn Hebrew for you. I can coach you and help you and shout hallelujah, but you need to put the time and effort in it. And I hope you will continue with us and enjoy the lessons. So if anybody wants to say something. Oh, sorry. That was too much. If anybody wants to say something, you can unmute yourself or just say shalom. Shalom with the shin and the final mem. Yes, shalom. Okay, guys, see you next week.
Thank you,
Enjoy.
Ronald.
Thank you. Bye.
Be blessed.
You.
Dankjewel.
Doei doei.
Doei.